with the approval of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? And that is carried. Was there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest tonight? I'm not seeing any, so I will ask all of you to please rise for the singing of our national anthem. A special thank you to the Orangeville Show Chorus for the new rendition of our national anthem. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. As it is public meeting night, I will turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. A few notes here to start the meeting. Tonight's agenda includes 1 statutory matter and 4 non-statutory matters. Statutory matters are those that are required to be presented at a public meeting for applications received as per the Planning Act. There is no provincial legislation requirement for non-statutory matters. However, they are being presented as a mechanism to gain information. All members of the public are permitted to speak to statutory public meeting agenda items. However, only residents, taxpayers, service providers, or members speaking on behalf of an association or organization that serves the town of Orangeville are permitted to speak to non-statutory public meeting items, provided they have not spoken to the item before council in the preceding 3 months. If you would like to speak to a matter and meet the requirements I just mentioned, please call 1-647-374-4685 and enter meeting ID 943-9456-8630, followed by the pound sign, twice. Or you can attend the meeting by clicking on the registration link included on the published agenda. If you wish to be notified of the decision on any of the matters listed on the agenda, please contact the Clerk's Division with your name, phone number, mailing address, and email address referencing the specific matter by email to clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca or by calling 519-941-0440, extension 7303. All information submitted or provided during the meeting or registration will be considered public information and entered into the public record. We will now move into the statutory matters portion of the meeting. The first matter on the agenda is in regard to RZ 2025-02, statutory public meeting for 73 Town Line. Staff have confirmed that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act for this item, and I'll now turn the meeting to Matthew Mayer from Mayerfields Planning and Development. Mr. Mayer, good to see you, sir. Is the mic able to turn down a little bit, or is it just me, or I'm obscenely loud? Yeah. Do you want me to sing into it? It's a little bit better. Thank you.
Can you hear me? It's good. All right. Hello, Mayor Post and council members. Thanks for allowing me to present tonight. I just wanted to give everybody a quick overview of our proposal here by Sheldon Creek Homes at 73 Town Line and answer any questions you may have. Next slide. So project and site overview. Again, this is an application to permit 2 semi-detached dwelling units and to retain the existing bungalow on the property fronting Town Line. So this proposal will require a separate application to create 2 new lots from the rear of the property, which will be done through a separate application for part lot control pending the approval of this zoning amendment application. So if you look at the aerial map on the slide there, you can see this is a large corner lot at Town Line and Bethia Street. It's got a frontage of approximately 76 feet along Town Line and 150 feet along Bethia. It's a well-located site, walking distance to schools, transit amenities, Orangeville's downtown. Also just want to note in that aerial map, if you just see the lotting in the area, the semi-detached dwellings just south of the subject property, along the same side of Bethia Street, some infill semi-detached dwellings that have been done there over the years. So just to note, similar to this project here. Next slide. So the existing conditions on the site, photo on the left is the existing bungalow and detached garage to remain as is. Photo on the right is the frontage along Bethia Street. So this is where the proposed dwellings will be situated. Next slide, please. The surrounding context. So photo on the right is the infill semi-detached dwelling just immediately south of the property, so just beside it along Bethia Street, as I mentioned. And the photo on the left is some more semis along Princess Street, just south of this property. So this is just to give you an idea of some other similar built form in the area. Next slide. So going on to the proposed development, this is the front elevation here. So each unit will have approximately 1,500 square feet. There are 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms each. So these are nice family-sized homes, and just shown in the elevation there, you can't see, but the total height of the structure will be just under 24 feet to the midpoint of the roof line there. So, average 2 stories. Next slide. Just some more elevations here. On the left, the rear elevation. On the right, the side elevation. You'll note that in the side elevation, you can see there's no windows on the side elevation on the second level. So that was done just to mitigate overlook into the side yards, being that this is an infill development. Next slide. So here are the conceptual renderings. So as you can see, it's pretty high quality built form. If you're familiar with Sheldon Creek developments and some of their other projects in town, you'll know that they build high quality homes. So this project is similar to the recent project they completed at the corner of Ada and Elizabeth Street. So that gives you an idea of kind of the built form that they're going for here, which, again, I think with that convenience store maintained, that was a successful project. So again, they've got a proven track record with this type of infill development. Next slide. So this is the draft site plan. On the left, you'll see the retained 1-story home on a separate lot, and on the right, the 2 proposed semi-detached dwellings. So again, this is a very large corner lot with the 76 feet of frontage along Town Line. It gives enough depth to situate those 2 proposed semis and still have adequate rear yard space. The proposed semis meet the 7-meter rear yard requirement in the zone standard. and the retained lot for the bungalow that's gonna stay as is. Even with the severed lots, it'll have a lot area of approximately 563 square meters. So this is still well beyond the lot area minimum for the R2 zone that it's in. So it's still a ample space there. Next slide. So under the actual amendment that this application is requesting to amend the zoning bylaw. So currently, the site is zoned R2. We're requesting to rezone the rear portion for those two proposed semis to R3 because semi-detached dwellings are not permitted in the R2 zone, with a special provision for a slightly reduced lot area. As you'll see in the table on the slide in the red, in the R3, the lot area minimum is 275 square meters, so requesting a special provision for a slight reduction. And then the front portion will be maintained as R2 with a special provision for a slight reduction in the rear yard. Next slide. So this is just the draft zoning schedule. So again, in the blue hatched area, that would be the front portion that's to remain in the R2 zone, and the area outlined in red would be the two lots to be rezoned to R3. I just wanted to note also in the schedule, you'll see just to the south of the subject property, all of that area is in the R3 zone. So that area outlined in red would just be a slight expansion of the R3 zoned area. So again, not a huge jump, and would be consistent with the zoning that's already in the area. And next slide, thank you. Just to finish off, we have met all submission requirements for this application through the planning division. Servicing and stormwater management memo has been submitted, a tree inventory and preservation plan, a planning justification report. That report obviously provides a lot more detail and an in-depth analysis of how the application meets all applicable planning policy, both at the provincial, county level, and at the municipal level with our own official plan here. But at a high level, the development will help achieve many of these policy goals just by, as summarized at the end of the slide, but, making efficient use of the land and existing services that are already there. It's modest infill, will help achieve intensification targets. And again, we think it's well located. It's in walking distance to the downtown, and a lot of amenities. Yeah, thanks. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We'll now move into public comments. We did not receive any delegation requests for this matter, so we'll move right into the verbal comments during the meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the gallery who have phoned in or online who may have questions or comments on this matter? No, seeing none. So we'll see if there's anyone in the public who would like to speak to this. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Yes, please come forward. Just come to the microphone and state your question and share your name and address for us, if you could, please.
I'm Teresa Oliveira, 66 John Street. I just have one question about the sewer and the water main. We're having issues with the water as it is in the area with the flushing of the system. Will this be affecting our water again when they build the new building?
Yeah. Mr. Koslak, did you want to provide any commentary?
Oh, through your worship, just wondering what kind of issues you're having with the water system.
Yesterday, the water coming out of my tap was brown. And so online, obviously, everybody's talking about the water changing colors and it's flushing of the systems, or we don't really know what's happening. But whenever there's a major development in our area especially, it changes our water color for a few, like, it's been 24 hours for me right now.
Mr. Kosar?
Yeah, through your worship. Usually that's caused by a high volume of water being used. We were looking at the system, we've had a couple of people mention that, and it looks like somebody may have opened a hydrant for about 10 minutes, and that causes high flow in the system, and it stirs up any sediment that's in the water. So we're trying to figure out what exactly happened with that and who did it and why. So we're trying to look at that. It wouldn't be caused by the development. It's more when a high volume of water gets used, such as a fire hydrant getting opened, or if there's a water break, then quite often you'll get the high flow of water and it stirs up any. We have a lot of iron in the water because we're groundwater, so you got iron and manganese, and that adds to the color in the water. So I know our staff have been out flushing the hydrants since we first got notified yesterday, so the water quality should improve.
So, okay, thank you.
If it helps, I too had that issue at my house yesterday and forward off, and I'm fine now. It's the first time ever in my whole entire time in Orangeville, but it's a great explanation, and we thank you for that. Thank you for your question. Is there anyone else in the gallery who would like to speak on this matter? No? Okay. Seeing none, at this time, we'll see if members of council would like to ask any questions. Before we do that, can we have a motion to receive the report and any associated comments with this information? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Sherwood. Okay, very good. Is there any discussions on the motion? No? Okay, this is a record. Okay. Oh, you do have a question? Oh, well, I just asked if you wanted to speak.
I thought you were questioning just the motion.
No, go ahead, Councillor Andrews.
This is a question for Mr. Mayor, so I'm not sure if you would have to come back to the microphone. Thank you. Through you, Chair Taylor, comment and then a question. Okay. Very pleased to see this particular application come. The intent of my comment is based on, of course, the opportunity for additional housing in our community. As the chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force, I don't know where this lies from, be that a baseline, but having said that, I think it's important that we take a look at any opportunities that exist for infill, and this is just an example of that. But I just wanted to pose my question through you, Mr. Chair. You referenced a former project that in fact caught my ear in your presentation, which was, again, representing the client that you have on Ada and Elizabeth. And one of the things, for those of us that may recall, there was a height concern from the residents. And it identified that the peak of the design was very high in comparison to the homes that were relatively close. I saw the rendering that you presented, and you did identify the height, but I'm looking at that rendering, the various perspectives, and what I didn't see is any correspondence to the existing homes. You, of course, have provided some photos of the existing homes, but there was no reference to, again, the height in comparison to those. So I'm not sure if there can be a comment to that question, but I am curious about that. And I do have a second one.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Chair. I can appreciate that. Again, I wasn't involved in that project, but I know, one of the major concerns with any infill is, just situating it within the existing neighborhood and being, sensitive to existing residents. And one of those concerns would be overlook. Now, being 2 stories, this meets the max height in that zone. I think 9.2 meters, so it's well below that. Now, as far as showing it in comparison to the other homes, certainly I can say that the existing home fronting town line is a bungalow. It's 1 story, but to the, again, mentioning to the southeast, the I guess slightly newer area, but that's primarily semis. Those are 2 stories, or at least just immediately beside it is 2 stories, so it would be similar in height. But yeah, we haven't really done like a comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I may? Yes, thank you. And again, I have to compliment the visual renderings that I have seen. It is, again, complementary to the work that, again, your client has done in our community, and certainly representative of the quality. The other is, in fact, the tip. And the tip, which of course is the number of trees that you have. You know, there are, looking at that fence line and having driven down that area, I can assume that there will be some trees that will have to be removed, no doubt for the sake of navigating into that lot. But will there be some trees replaced?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, you are correct. There will be a few trees needing to be removed in the middle of the backyard, the existing backyard. As far as tree replacement goes, I know that would be common, and through the review process, we've certainly, we're amenable to tree replacement. There wasn't a requirement for a landscape plan per se, but certainly that can be detailed, a certain tree replacement ratio. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I do have, but I know my fellow members of council have.
Do you want staff comment on that as well?
Yeah,
or
if they could, that would be great. Thank you,
is,
Chair Taylor.
Mr. Ward or Mr. Nunes?
Sure, thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and through you. A landscape plan is typically not something we would ask for as part of a zoning bylaw amendment application unless it was needed to inform like land use compatibility questions and things of that nature. But we can take that back as part of the tree inventory and preservation plan review. It sounds like there's willingness to plant trees in the property, and we'd look to work through that through the later process.
Okay. And I do have one more, but
Why don't we go and...
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Councillor
come
Sherwood.
back.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Marr. I love the concept, and they look lovely. I'm asking, I've got two questions, actually. The first one is regarding parking. Is it the two parking spaces, one in the garage and one in the driveway, or is there two driveway plus the garage for each unit?
Through you, Chair, thank you for that question. So the proposed parking is side by side in the driveway, so it isn't one in the driveway and one in the garage. The garages on these proposed dwellings are not, given that these are situated in the current, they're going to be front to back in what's currently the side to side of the yard. They were tight on space, so to accommodate the adequate living space they were going for, the garage is actually not large enough to accommodate a legal size like parking space, so it would be considered storage area in the floor plans.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. I do have one more question. This possibly could be for staff. The changing of the zoning, would that permit each of those units to be able to have a secondary unit? So like basement apartments in there? I believe, Mr. Ward?
Sure, yeah, again, through you, Deputy Mayor. So the change in zoning, it doesn't have any material effect on that. That's permitted in a dwelling unit regardless if it's a single or a semi. Perhaps one of the constraints here might be the parking. For every additional dwelling unit, you need to provide a parking space. So if the site is only able to provide two for the main unit and they're not able to provide a third, unless those parking standards are under a more comprehensive review, they wouldn't be able to provide that accessory unit.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. Councillor Sherwood, you're good. Councillor Andrews.
Was there anyone else that had any questions? No. Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, very quickly, this is pertaining to the single detached dwelling that you have. Will that be renovated, or will the resident remain in that particular house while the construction is taking place, or is that part of the whole plan to also revitalize that particular property as well?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. It is my understanding that the entire property was purchased, resident has vacated. Now, I can't speak to it too much because I'm, just dealing with this rezoning as part of these proposed semis, but I do believe the existing bungalow will be renovated, cleaned up, once this process is finished and it's on its own lot, retained lot, then I would presume would be, sold as part of the project.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much,
good.
and that's all I have,
Okay.
Chair Taylor. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, through you. Just one more quick question. Again, this could be staff, it could go, Mr. Maher. So the existing property will still have the allowable amount of backyard left? Or are we adjusting that as well?
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So one of the two special provisions through the rezoning on the retained lot was a reduction in the minimum rear yard setback from 7 meters, which is the standard in the R2 and the R3, to 6 meters. So that retained lot will have a proposed rear yard of 6 meters. But again, given how wide it is, it's still, a large backyard. But yeah, that is one of the special provisions. So it'll remain R2 with a special provision for that slight reduction in rear yard.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sherwood? Okay, very good. Seeing there's no other questions at this time, we already have a motion on the, or approved motion on the floor. So all those in favor? Yes. So that motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. All the best with your project.
Thank you.
So we'll now move into the non-statutory portion of the public meeting. The next matter on the agenda is regarding the election sign bylaw review. I'll now call on James Branley, who's our Supervisor of Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement. Mr. Bramley, welcome.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and members of council, members of staff, and residents. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting a comparison between the town's current election sign bylaw and the new proposed 2006 draft election sign bylaw. The goal of this review is to walk council through the substantive changes being proposed and explain why they're being recommended, outline these updates, improve clarity, the enforceability, and the administrative efficiency while maintaining fairness and neutrality in the election process. As I said, this presentation focuses primarily on the material changes. We aren't going to focus on the existing details within the bylaw that changes haven't come to. It's only going to focus on the matters that are different, that are being brought forward. The updates before you will reflect operational experiences from past elections, enforcement challenges, and the direction towards administrative modernization, particularly through the administrative penalty system. Municipal sign timing change. One of the more substantive adjustments relating to the timing of municipal election signs under the current 2022 bylaw. The signs may be erected 45 days prior to the election day. With the election day scheduled for October 26th, that would allow signs to be put out and posted on September 11th. The proposed draft instead permits the following of the close of nominations, which this year is August 21st, so that creates a 66-day display period. So in practical terms, this extends the potential display window by approximately 21 days. The rationale for this is threefold. First, it aligns signage with confirmed candidates. Once nominations close, the ballot is finalized and voters who are officially running can place their signage out for public viewing. Secondly, it removes the need to calculate that 45-day period for each election cycle. The close of nominations is a fixed and well-publicized statutory milestone that we can always know what's coming up. The third is to reduce disputes about early unofficial campaigning. If nominations have not closed, signage is not permitted. Once they close, then it is permitted. In the 2026 draft, we've introduced a new 1 meter setback separation between election signs. The current bylaw does not regulate any spacing between any signage being placed out on any property within the municipality. From past experiences, staff have encountered clustering situations where multiple signs were placed directly adjacent to one another, thus blocking the viewability of signage and the information of candidates. This creates challenges such as traffic sightlines, visual clutter, disputes between campaigns, and enforcement complaints about fairness. A measurable 1 meter rule provides an objective standard, fair treatment among campaigns, easier enforcement, and reduced conflict escalation. It also aligns with the common standards used in other municipalities across the province. If it cannot be determined which sign was there first, an officer will be able to attend the site and, if available, move the signs to have the 1 meter setback from each sign. Where there would not be the opportunity to have all these multiple signs in that one location where it wouldn't meet the setbacks or safe visible sight lines, the signs would be removed, and we would contact the candidate saying these signs have been removed because it's not safe to have them. Please come and pick them up, and you can post them again as long as we're meeting that 1 meter setback. The voting place buffer expansion. The current bylaw prohibits signs at a voting place. However, that language can be interpreted narrowly. The proposed new bylaw establishes a 100 meter setback from a voting place. This provides a clear neutrality zone around polling locations and removes my apologies, I can't speak today, ambiguity. This is important for several reasons. It reinforces voter neutrality and integrity. It protects electors from perceived influence immediately around polling locations and gives enforcement staff a defined, measurable perimeter. From a legal perspective, regulating signage in a proximity to a voting location is widely recognized as reasonable and defensible when tied to maintaining orderly and neutral polling environments. Both versions of the bylaw restrict election signs on a highway except arterial and collector class roads. The proposed draft has been strengthened to include a schedule listing these roads along the corresponding map. This change is more administrative in nature, but significantly strengthening operational needs. In past elections, staff have fielded questions such as, is this road considered a collector, and why was my sign removed but not that one over there? By embedding the classification schedule directly into the bylaw, we eliminate the interpretive disputes and increase transparency, fairness, and predictability for candidates. For the removal and storage of signs and what the changes brought forward, the new bylaw only has brought forward an administrative fee to recoup costs associated with members of staff attending these sites and removing the signage. And we've removed any fees for storage for the length of time. The other difference that we've also brought in is that we will hold on to these signs until 7 days after the closing of the election. So once it has been complete, we will still hold on to them until the end of that time, at which point they would be removed. And again, candidates will be notified that when a sign has been removed and they have the opportunity to come and get them. It's only the remaining signs at the end of that 7 days when those signs would be destroyed at that point. Administrative penalty system integration. Another more of the significant changes in the proposed draft is formal integration with the town's administrative penalty system, or APS. The current bylaw primarily relies on prosecution under the Provincial Offences Act. While that mechanism still remains available, it is time-consuming, resource-intensive, and disproportionate for many minor regular matters. By designating certain sections of the administrative penalty bylaw and the new election sign bylaw, we can issue administrative penalties directly, resolve matters faster, and avoid unnecessary court proceedings, and ensure consistency with other town regulatory enforcement. To be clear, this is not about increasing penalties. It's about modernizing the enforcement process and aligning with what is already established in town for our regulatory enforcement and other licensing models, so that we bring our bylaws and enforcement into a new modernized stream. And as I said, this gives more of an overview of the enforcement structure. In the 2022, we focus on orders to comply, the POA structure if we needed to have that enforcement measure. Coming into the 2026 draft, it's a little bit more simplified. We still have an order if we need it, but our staff is able to go out and attend and address it immediately. If a sign is in contravention in the past, the signs will be brought in forward, and there'd be a period of holding days, and there'd be a fee that could be added to any candidates. In the new structure, what we're proposing is any signs found in contravention will be removed, and a penalty notice would be issued at that point in time. We're going to still mirror the same fees that are existing for $25. It is not to be substantial or punitive. It's, again, a measure to accommodate and counter the costs and time of officers and staff having to attend and address these calls moving forward. Again, this is bringing us into a modernized enforcement approach, which has been directed by the province on multiple occasions to bring in focus towards the administrative penalty systems. It's more efficient for administration for our staff and reduces the procedural duplication in attending court in the POA system. This final slide, this is an overview of where election signs are permitted and prohibited. In short, signs are permitted on private property with the owner's consent. They're allowed along boulevards, along the arterial and collector roads that will be identified within the schedule and the map, provided that they meet the spacing, size, and setbacks that we set out in the bylaw. Where they are not permitted are on boulevards on local residential roads, on roadways or medians, on the intersections and middles of our roads, on utility infrastructures, or within 100 meters of a voting place. The intent is to balance freedom of political expression with traffic safety, fairness, community aesthetics, and electoral neutrality. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. So at this time, we will move into public comments. We did not receive any delegation requests regarding this matter, so we'll move right into verbal comments regarding the meeting. A reminder that you have 3 minutes to present your information to council, and that this commenting period is open only to residents, taxpayers, service providers, or members speaking on behalf of an association or organization that serves the town of Orangeville and who have not spoken to this matter in the previous 3 months. So Madam Clerk, is there anybody on the line? No? Okay. So is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this? Mr. Walkinshaw, did you want to come up? I was almost late for this meeting because of a last-minute phone call from this gentleman on this matter.
Thanks, Your Worship.
If you can just bring the microphone over, Bruce. Yeah, thank you very
hear
much.
me
Can
now?
you state your name and address for...
Yep, my name is Bruce Walkinshaw. I live at 65 Dinnick Crescent in Orangeville. And my concern remains the restrictions on sign erection. The proposed bylaw is talking about a 1 meter spacing between signs. We've got 8 councillors. In the last election, if my memory is correct, we had about double that number of candidates running. You would severely restrict the number of election signs that are allowed on a corner with that 3 meter space between. So to me, a better resolution would be that
Just on that, it's 1 meter.
1 meter is roughly 3 feet.
You just said, excuse me, sorry, you said 3 meters. I just
I'm
wanted to
sorry,
make- Yeah,
1 meter, 3 feet.
3.3.
We're going to be technical? Sure. To me, a better solution would be that signs don't impede any other signs. So in other words, you don't put your sign right in front of somebody else's sign. But you should be able to put your sign right beside another candidate's sign and not have that much space, because you're going to severely restrict the number of candidates that are going to be allowed to put signs up on a corner. And to me, that's anti-democratic, and it runs counter to our system to start with. There's comments in this proposed bylaw that talks about improved aesthetics, the reduction of cloistering, aligns with broader election integrity practices, which to me is code for restricting. I remind you that democracy is messy. and we live in a democratic system, and people who want to be candidates and meet the qualifications should be allowed to put signs up. And the other thing you're going to do is you're going to increase the already incumbent advantage that exists in municipal elections by having these kind of space restrictions between where, how many signs you can put up in a particular corner. And the gentleman referred to the destruction of signs that are taken by the town that are not placed properly. It doesn't indicate how they're going to be destroyed. So I would like to request that they be recycled. Okay, we have a terrific recycling company down in Cambridge. So if that could be added,
Very good.
that would be good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walkinshaw.
Thank you.
You know, interesting point brought up by the resident, if I could, Mr. Bramley. The 1 meter piece, as it was being described by you, I was thinking that it would be, you know, sign, then sign, and sort of face this way as you go down the roadway. But the other way it could be looked at is if you're coming and you're facing it, you would put it side by side, as Mr. Walkinshaw had stated, and the 1 meter would be strange to me because that would mean they'd be 3 feet apart, and there won't be room on a corner if that's the way. So I wonder if you could just clarify that.
Absolutely, through you, Mayor Taylor, or Deputy Mayor Taylor. Again, this is something we can look at moving forward to bring more exploration between the wording of being in front, beside, and not adjacent. Again, I can't give any concrete answers. The purpose of is it to not impede existing signs so that signs wouldn't be obstructed and that we're not obstructing any sight lines going into those corners of being too over encumbered. But if it's something that we will be able to look forward and have come back with a staff report on our return.
Very good. And then the recycling piece, I imagine that's not you, but is that something that you and the rest of your team could look into?
Again, something we'll look into and bring back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Walkinshaw. Appreciate you being here. Does anyone else in the gallery want to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none. At this time, we'll move on to, did I miss somebody? No? We'll move on to members of council on this matter. So at this time, just to get this thing going, can we have a motion to receive the presentation and associated comments for information? Moved by Councillor Stevens. Councillor Sherwood, thank you. So, council, any discussion on this motion? Councillor Stevens, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Chair Taylor. Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, you put a lot of work into it, you and your team. Job well done. I just have 2 areas of concern. One is pretty much what the last delegate said. I'm not sure if I would agree with the 1 meter. I think it needs to be, I mean, I just look at the end of Blind Line at Broadway. I mean, when you're coming down Blind Line, you have all the signs that stand right there. And if they're 1 meter apart, I mean, they're gonna go on forever when you come down that way. I think you probably need to adjust that or just remove it, and you can't put it in front of each other like you said. And the second one would be the time frame. I mean, we hear about it every time we run for council. You know, the signs are up too long. I think the 45 days is plenty. I wouldn't expand that whatsoever. So that's my comments.
Councillor Anders.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Taylor. I have a couple of comments, and again, some their comments. Pertaining to what Councillor Stevens and our delegation had also indicated, there are historically some examples that I can certainly highlight during my campaigns. And again, with all fairness to any future candidates, I think what we all try to do is have a level playing field. But there are those that end up removing signs, who decide to put their sign in front of yours, who don't play by the same playbook. And I think that, you know, for the sake of going through this exercise, we also did so in our previous term. We even spoke about the length of time that the duration of signs would be up for. There was even a discussion, as for those of us that recall this from our first term, on the number of signs we would end up allowing candidates to have. I think there was a figure of 100, and that would be it, or 125, that would be it. It doesn't matter on what the candidates decide to do, on the number of signs they put up. Signs are one way of communicating your intent to sit in this rented seat for the 4 years that we're here. Having said that, I think that the 1 meter, depending on the location, is going to actually increase the proliferation of signs in a geographical area. An example is Hanson and First, right by the Orangeville Mall. There's prime real estate there in that corner that many of us have strategically placed. And I know some of my members of council, you are the first as we declare it to be. It's like, you're on Survivor Island and you've decided to put your stake in there and you've done so first and you have it cataloged in your database. Unfortunately, somebody overnight decides they're going to play the game and remove your sign, and your sign mysteriously has gone missing. Bylaw has it on record. I lost 37 signs in the previous campaign that just mysteriously went missing. And there are others on council who also faced that. It turns out to be an expense for us, and I'm not talking about that part of the commitment. But it becomes a level playing field for everybody who's playing by the same rules. Not everyone plays by the same rules. So having said that, I think we have to maybe reconsider that 1 meter spacing, because you may find yourself with a long conga line of signs that will be, in fact, in many locations in our community. The other is, in fact, the length of the duration that you've spoken about. We've gone from 44 in this proposal, and it is a proposal, to 66. Like Councillor Stevens, I received so many complaints on the length of time that the signs were up. It got to the point that I still hear to this very day from residents who said, I know that there's an election coming up, but is there a way that you can kind of tighten up the length of time that signs are up? Because it just changes the whole dynamic of our community. Yes, members of our community who want to have and proudly put one of our signs on their front lawn. We've had some who, in fact, have several signs on their front lawn. And, again, I'm absolutely delighted when you have a resident who wants to do that. But I think that when you take a look at the length of time, that is really stretching it out. And I do respect the amount of work that has gone on into this, Mr. Bramley. You and your team have done a lot of investigation. Again, I've also taken a look at what's out there in the different municipalities. And in the playbook, there are some similarities, but there's also some significant differences. And I think that what I'm trying to express here in my commentary is the fact that it should be a level playing field for everyone who wants to sit in this seat, who has aspirations on serving the community. But we also have to make sure that it is equitable and can be, in fact, monitored properly. We'll deal with those who decide to arbitrarily play by a different playbook and decide to, take our signs because that's just how they play the game. I don't play by that rule. I think none of us play by that rule, but we are hugely disappointed when someone, and in fact is spotted, removing our sign because they want to end up getting the real estate that is closest to the road and the viewers and maybe in their vehicles or walking by. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Very well said. And Councillor Sherwood, you have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I'm going to also piggyback on the same comments. I'm not in favor of the 1 meter distance. I think back in the 2014 election when there were 17 candidates running, not including school board candidates, and I can imagine 17 signs spreading over 56 feet, if that's what you could imagine. So I think respectfully, if we're all side by side, I think that works great. So again, I just think about certain areas where there's no way you want to see, like I said, if 17 candidates run again, not including school boards, you're looking at like them being spread way over. So I would rather them all be clustered and tucked nicely together than to have that vision. I'm also very much against having signs polluting our beautiful town for weeks and weeks and weeks. To go for 66 days, I don't think it's necessary. I'm still in support of the 45 days. My last question is clarity on the map. On the map, I believe on one of the arterial collector roads is including the bypass, which I believe is the town of Caledon. If I look at, so I would have thought everything past town line and Riddell as you're heading out towards Highway 10, even though it's highlighted as an aerial road, or collector road, I believe that's Town of Caledon. So we weren't able to put signs out there last time.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood, and through you, Chair. Again, when we took this map, we took it right from the town's official plan. If there is an error here, we will take this back and make any adjustments to that, so that it would be only within the town of Orangeville.
Yeah, I just want clarification, and it's the same with along town line. If you're going along town line, I believe the south side of town line is Caledon.
Thank you. And again, through you, Chair, we'll take this back and work with Transportation and Development to ensure that we have an accurate map and ensure that this is highlighted appropriately to reflect the proper places and placement for signage moving forward.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Mayor Post has asked to speak on that, and I'm going to deny her request because I am going to speak first, and as the mayor, I think you should speak last, if that's okay. So it's respect, not trying to be a turkey here. I am complete alignment on the 45 days. If you recall, there was sort of a good-natured, goodwill piece that people who ran decided to put forward a few elections ago, and it was the whole piece was not to have signs up in the summertime and prior to Labor Day when families were doing their things, and plus it did pollute the town. It's really quite awful, the signs. It's a terrible look for the town, and if you could get away without the signs, I would love to do that, but I can hear Mr. Walkinshaw rolling over in his grave as I say that. I know why we have the signs. It is a disadvantage to new people who are coming in. That is their billboard to get their brand out there, and they should absolutely have the right to do that. So I would suggest that the 45 days is great. I do worry about the 1 meter thing again as well, just as everybody. And again, if they're face on, that's one thing. I don't see it. But the issue last time, Mr. Bramley, was there was candidates who would run them this way down the street, and they would have 10, 12 in a row, taking up large amounts. And it was just, candidly, I think everyone thought it was pollution. And that side, I think the spirit of what was trying to be avoided was this, down the street kind of look, if I'm articulating that correctly. And then the last piece is there was quite a debate about the number of signs. And again, based on the election bylaw, you are allowed to spend up to a certain amount, and I don't know what that is at this time. I think the mayor was around 20,000 last time. It's the right of the candidate to spend all that money, and they can spend it any which way they wish. That said, I do wish we'd look into some sort of limit of signs, because there is other ways. There's social media, there's billboards. I don't need to list them all, but it's a shame to have all of these signs polluting our town for such a long period of time. And then the last piece would be the location on a highway. In the past, we have had access to the highway that runs north-south on the east side of Orangeville. And, signs could be basically up to a certain point as you curve to go to the city, and they could also be at the bypass and whatnot. And I think it's a shame to not have them because they are featured intersections. And so I guess I'd want to make sure that we still had those. And, I know Mayor Post is in the office more than the rest of us, but maybe where those locations are that I'm referring to. But I think that those locations should still be available for people to advertise their brand. And I think that's all I have, but thank you so much for the bylaw. It was such an important thing last time, and Councillor Andrews, I don't hear emotion in your voice very often, but I could feel the frustration from you, and it's such a personal thing when you're putting yourself out on display, and signs are a way of putting yourself on display, and when the signs are vandalized or not respected or whatnot, it's hurtful, to be honest with you, for lack of a better way of describing it. And you put so much effort into something that you want to be recognized in a way. And that's why we wanted the bylaw to be brought forward, just out of fairness for everyone. And I think it's important that we did this work, and I look forward to the final bylaw when you're ready. And Mayor Post, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. My comments are very similar to those of my colleagues. I wanted to just touch on the 45 days and why we landed there. And one of the reasons when we had talked about this previously was that when we compare ourselves to provincial and federal writ periods, none of those can extend, I think it's 51 days is the max. So we looked at that as being 45 days would align. If we're at 66 days, we're already allowing this additional over what our provincial or federal counterparts would ever allow. And the 45 days was kind of that average number that we had taken. And that's why we landed there. And I'm still supportive of the 45 days as well. I think it's pretty easy in a candidate's package to include what that date will be when they're picking up the candidate package and handing it back in and just letting them know. Because I know that it is difficult to communicate ongoing changes, but I think as part of a candidate package, I think that would make some sense. When we talk about the 1 meter, I am completely against that as well. Like I was going to reference the 2014 election, as Councillor Sherwood did as well, because at that time there was 17 candidates, and I just can't imagine how you would utilize your signs effectively, and particularly for new candidates who are just entering into the race for the first time. I think that would give them a disadvantage for sure. I think from your perspective as well, Mr. Bramley, I think it would be an absolute nightmare for enforcement because I can already envision, Councillor Andrews referenced some of the sign games that were being played in previous elections, and we don't need to go through that, but it wouldn't take much for a candidate to see a sign, put their sign strategically right beside it, knowing the bylaw is going to come and remove both signs. And now the candidate who did probably have their sign there first is also being negatively impacted. And I think from an enforcement perspective, that would be an absolute nightmare for your team. And I think it will disadvantage the candidates who are playing by the rules and doing the right thing and going out and effectively putting up their signs. Signs take an awful lot of time for anybody considering running. Signs take not only a lot of money, but a lot of time to constantly maintain that you're, checking on them and making sure that they're still there. And if your signs are disappearing because bylaw is coming and seeing that 2 or 3 signs are clustered too close and removing all of them, it's a nightmare for candidates as well. So I'm not supportive of that. I think that there's a way that we can articulate that clear, because I know what your intent is trying to make sure that everybody's signs are clear and being able to be seen. But I'm not sure that a 1 meter distance is going to really do that well. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Post. Oh, Councillor Sherwood, you're going to usurp the mayor who went last. Okay.
Do you mind if I ask one more question?
You'll have to talk to her after the meeting. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To staff, I just want clarification about the 100 meters from the voting place. So let's just take Best Western as an example. Where does the 100 meters start from? Because the driveway is off Bona Vista. Best Western is quite far in. So how do we know where the 100 meters starts from?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Chair. Again, this will be something we will come back with further clarification. The intent was from the building, the structure itself, from any of the signs of voting places and entrance places is the intent behind it, but we'll come back with clearer focus of it. So at the entrance of a voting place, it'd be 100 meters from that point. Again, it's to ensure that there's neutrality when entering a voting place, so there's no influence of existing signage in that area. But again, I will come back with clarification and more detailed answer for that.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Mayor Post wants to continue to speak last.
No, that's right. No, I just to build on what Councillor Sherwood said, that's a really good point. And again, if we're including in a candidate's package, it might be nice if we had a map that outlined kind of what those locations would be and where the restrictions would be.
Very good. That is an excellent point, and that would make things so much easier if they were set. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Set. Yes, I totally agree with that.
So I'm going to chirp in one more time here.
Councillor Sherwood wants to be last.
I want to speak to you about this because you brought it up just lightly here, but you didn't ask staff for any further direction. When we talked about one candidate putting 20 signs in a row, so taking away from the opportunity for other candidates, there's nothing in here addressing the limit of the number of the same signs. Is that something we wanted to look into? So you know what I'm talking about, right? Where it was like doom, 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 like maybe there was a meter apart, but that whole area was taken by one candidate. It's not addressed here. So do we want to have a limit that a candidate can only have a sign within so many meters of their own sign?
Yeah, it's a great point, Mr. Bramley, and actually that was the spirit of why we brought that up, and Councillor Sherwood, you're spot on. Mr. Bramley, did you have any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood, and through you, Chair. I will say I've already made note of that aspect as you were coming up and discussing where signage will be placed, and you made comment of multiple signs being put up or strategic placement to have signs removed and an existing sign put. I have made note to include some sort of reference or setback from existing signage of the same candidate. So we'll have something coming forward with a report to answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bramley. The evening is going to continue on because Councillor Andrews would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, and I certainly want to make sure that the mayor has the last word on this, and then maybe she will. But there are some municipalities that also require each candidate to have a sticker on their sign that validates that in fact it has been approved. And again, that's not to say that people are going to end up spending, because it costs a lot of money per sign. And when you lose 37 like I did, and again, that's just my example and many others, I mean, Mother Nature may blow a few out the door, but the point is that if you have signs that have been vetted, and again, that's not to make more work for anybody, clerks or your department, but again, just a thought here, and to the point that Councillor Sherwood mentioned, even from the point of having the map that Mayor Post had indicated, having a reference point, like even a stick or whatever it is, this is 100 meters. Are we talking the door? Are we talking inside of the ballot box? Are we talking, I mean, there's so many, so I don't want to say any more, but we've spoken a lot about this one tonight.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Andrews. You've got the feedback, you don't need to, okay, very good. Mayor Post, are you, no? Okay, we're all good here. We're good. So we already have a motion on the floor. All in favor at this point? Yes, okay, so that motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. So the next matter on the agenda is regarding the salvage yard bylaw proposal. I'm wondering, just before we do call on Mr. Bramley, CAO Smith, did you want to give a small update on this in the terms of the status? I look like I caught you as a deer in the headlights, but we did talk a little bit about this.
Through you, Chair, I think you're referencing not the specific bylaw, but the
just the general state that we're in and where things are, and if it's inappropriate, then fine, we'll move on.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to comment on that. As members of council and the community know, the town experienced some theft of property, and that property was found at the salvage yard, and there is a pending court case that is being taken through the court system. In fact, there's another one scheduled for tomorrow, and I will keep you apprised of any updates on the charges and the outcome related to that.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll now call on James Branley, our Supervisor, Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement, to give an overview of the salvage yard bylaw proposal. The seat is hot tonight, Mr. Branley.
Good evening again, Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor, members of council, staff, and residents. Tonight, I'll be bringing another presentation forward. This presentation will be an overview of a proposed salvage yard licensing bylaw. The purpose of the proposed bylaw is about establishing clarity and consistency. Salvage yards are a specialized business class with unique operational characteristics. Unlike general retail or service businesses, they involve in storage, dismantling, and processing of material that may include vehicles, scrap metal, or other salvageable components. The purpose of this bylaw is not to restrict legitimate business activity, rather is to ensure that where salvage yards operate within Orangeville, they do so in a way that protects neighboring properties, supports environmental responsibility, and maintains public confidence in lawful business practices. This is a preventative regulatory framework. It sets expectations up front rather than responding reactively to issues after they occur. So Orangeville does not currently have a dedicated licensing bylaw for salvage yards. Given the nature of the business, staff were directed to develop a structured framework. In doing so, we reviewed the Municipal Act to ensure appropriate authority. We benchmarked comparable Ontario municipalities that already have an established licensing bylaw and examined how those municipalities address environmental risks, record keeping, and operational controls. We structured this proposal to align with Orangeville's existing licensing model. This is not an experimental approach. It reflects commonly to existing regulatory standards across Ontario in itself. Why this regulation is appropriate is that salvage yard operations inherently carry elevated risks. Vehicle and scrap materials contain or may contain fuel, oils, coolant, lubricants, heavy metals, and other potential hazardous substances. And without appropriate, oh, my apologies, I just moved my notes. And without appropriate operational standards, these materials can pose risks to the soil, the groundwater, neighboring properties, and long-term municipal liability exposure. Additionally, salvage yards can become targets to unlawful activity if there are insufficient acquisition controls in place. Licensing provides structure. It also allows the town to set minimum standards, monitor compliance, address issues appropriately and proportionately to ensure accountability. This standard municipal governance is a practice. My apologies. This standard municipal governance practice is for high-risk businesses. The licensing requirement under this proposed framework, it states that no salvage yard may operate without a valid municipal license. The license is issued annually, ensuring ongoing review and accountability of the business in itself. Operators must demonstrate proper business registration, adequate insurance coverage, compliance with identification and screening requirements in the process of acquisition, agreement to operational standards and inspection authority. This ensures that the operators who meet defined standards can conduct business within the town safely and effectively. With operational standards, we are focused on lawful acquisition and responsible handling. For example, identification verification requires reduced risk of accepting stolen goods. Serial number restrictions prevent unlawful material processing. Mandatory holding periods create a buffer before materials can be dismantled or resold. The prohibition on operating as an impound yard ensures that the property is used only for its licensed purpose. These are not unusual measures and are widely used across Ontario municipalities that regulate secondhand goods and salvage yards. And when I make reference to verification and acquisition, this is looking into verifying who these materials are coming from, and we hold those individuals accountable and we record these details. And when I speak to holding periods, the bylaw speaks that any material brought into a salvage yard is to be held for 5 days before anything can happen to it, whether it's resold, destroyed, or altered. Again, this is a measure we put in as a preventative measure that in case something was brought in, they bought without the knowledge of it being stolen or anything else, it gives the opportunity for police, other enforcement measures to appropriately react to address the matter so no one else, the business may not be held in fault because maybe they did not know at this point, but it also gives us that ability to go in and make sure that these measures are being appropriately accommodated. Record keeping and transparency. The transaction register or ledger is one of the most important tools in this bylaw. It creates transparency in acquisition practices and allows enforcement officers to verify compliance. If concerns arise, whether the related Whether related to theft, improper disposal, or operational conduct, the register provides a documented record of transaction. This protects the town, it protects the business in itself, and it protects the public. Clear record keeping supports fair enforcement and due process. And we do reference this ledger in the bylaw as a prescribed form, as we would put out as the identification of the individual bringing in items has to be listed, their ID, what they're using. If there's serial numbers, it's recorded. There's photos of it, how long it's been brought in. It's a fully detailed ledger or register as we define it within the bylaw that police, bylaw, or any enforcement agent can come in and review to ensure that everyone is being held accountable and fair transparency in this measure. Environmental protection measures. Environmental oversight is included because salvage yard operations have potential to impact soil, groundwater, and groundwater provisions. The environmental site assessment requirement ensures that a qualified person can evaluate site conditions. This is preventative, it is not punitive. It is protect our municipality and the land we live upon. It identifies potential contaminations early, reduces long-term remediation costs, protects adjacent properties, protects municipal liability exposure, and aligns with environmental stewardship objectives. It also reflects the reality that municipalities increasingly incorporate environmental risk management into business licensing frameworks. The application requirements are designed to ensure legitimacy and accountability. These include business documentations, identification verification, criminal record and judicial matters checks, proof of insurance, and payment of licensing fees. These requirements are consistent across regulated business classes within the town as well. This maintains consistency and fairness on how businesses are regulated. This bylaw strengthens governance. It creates clarity both for operators and for the public. It ensures that high-risk operators are subject to structured oversight. It aligns Orangeville with provincial norms. It balances economic activity with environmental and community protection. It provides enforcement tools that are proportionate and transparent. Ultimately, this is about responsible regulation and not restriction. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Bramley. So at this time, we'll move into public comments. We did not receive any delegation requests for this matter, so we'll move right into the verbal comments during the meeting. If you're going to speak, reminder that you are afforded 3 minutes to present your information to council, and that this commentating period is open only to residents, taxpayers, service providers, or members speaking on behalf of an association or organization that serves the town of Orangeville who have not spoken to this matter in the previous 3 months. Madam Clerk, is there anyone on the line? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the gallery who'd like to speak to this? Please come forward. Why don't we work from the back? How's that? If you could just state your name and address when you come forward, and then share your question. And we'll need your microphone on. Yep, you're good to go.
It's on?
Welcome.
Teresa Oliveira, 66 John Street. I just had a couple of questions when I read through the bylaw and some of the documentation that was online. I'm just wondering, they might not be questions that need to be answered right now, but maybe like food for thought. Has council evaluated whether a salvage yard is an appropriate land use on a residential neighborhood? One street from a public school, or is the bylaw regulating an existing use without assessing its suitability? So I'm specifically talking about the one on Mill Street. Given the prior explosion at this site on Mill Street, why does the bylaw not require mandatory fire department inspections, hazardous material storage standards, or limits on combustible material volumes? The environmental, kind of like the environmental oversight, but who selects and pays the qualified person conducting the environmental site assessment, and will the report be independently reviewed and made publicly available? How often are the environmental assessments and inspections required after a license is issued, and are inspections proactive or complaint-driven only? Under section 11.1.7, council may refuse or revoke a license if issuing it is contrary to the public interest with respect to health and safety. Has council considered whether the history of criminal charges and an explosion meet that threshold? Who is responsible for ensuring that the business does not facilitate the circulation of stolen property, which we've kind of touched on, but who's responsible for it? And how does this affect existing scrap metal properties? Would the existing yards have to apply as a new application, or would they be grandfathered in? And if this were to be a new application today, would council approve a salvage yard like the one on Mill Street? And that's my question.
Yeah, that's quite a mouthful there.
I'm sorry.
That was war.
I had all day.
A little bit of War and Peace question.
I know.
Answer there. How do we want to do this, James? Do you want to respond to these now, or are you just going to take note and we'll discuss next time? Is that best, or lots of good thoughts there. What would you like?
Through you, Chair, again, a lot of great points being brought up. At this point, we'll take all those back, and with the report coming forward, we'll have those addressed and answered at that point for the next council meeting when we bring this forward.
It's perfect. There's a lot of details there. I don't want to be disrespectful, but the way the process will work is this is the feedback session, and then there's going to be the actual piece. So I think that's probably best given where we are in the process. Okay? I've got that. Yeah, David?
Yeah, thank you. I would also like to comment, thanks very much for the questions. It may be appropriate for our staff to reach out to the questioner and have some dialogue and come up with the top 10 questions and put those into a report rather than putting every question and every response into the report. It becomes pretty large. So I'd like to do that, and we'll have James reach out to you and have some dialogue there, because that allows for some discussion to happen rather than we write down an answer and we may not be answering the question appropriately.
Yeah. For me, if it could, I'm so grateful that you came today, and clearly based on your address, this is affecting you, and the thoughtfulness of your questions is duly noted, and we'll make sure that we get back, and hopefully you can link in with town staff, and thank you so much for being here. Yeah. In the back of the room, did you want to address the room as well? Please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you.
You could state your name and address.
Elisa Alexander, 43 Margaret Street. This delightful place is in my backyard, as the two of you are aware. So one of my questions about it is, I went by this morning and took a photo of the outside of it, and I would like to see posted working hours, rather than just a sign with their phone number. They have been working on Saturday evenings at 8 p.m. in the summer. So we need some rules around when they're going to be able to operate. The other thing I would like to question is the license being renewed every year. I would like to see it be 6 months so things can be reviewed to ensure compliance. And regarding the transaction ledger, who's monitoring it and who is going to determine what's stolen and what's not, and whether things actually make it on that ledger? And are we going to be relying on the OPP to monitor this transaction ledger? Like, who is going to take care of that? And who's going to determine what materials are stolen? Because as you know, we were robbed significantly last September.
It is a good question, like that. It was on my follow-up notes to ask about that ledger. Is it possible to have a little bit of go on that now? Like, to me, it will be report-based, right? How someone would have to almost be, like, based on my experiences with you and your group, James, I would have to say to you, hey, I have suspicions that there's something going on. I want to make a report to bylaw. Otherwise, bylaw is not going to go. Then bylaw would show up and they would ask for that report. If there was something wrong, I guess you would phone OPP, would you not?
It's a good question, and again, these are conversations that I've had with multiple municipalities on different methods on measures on how to enforce this. The ledger in itself is a preventative measure to ensure that any transaction will be documented and recorded. This has been proved across multiple municipalities that if this is not upkept, the business in itself will face penalties coming for their way. A lot of individuals in this evaluation are not comfortable in presenting their identification and providing all this information and contact information when bringing forward stolen items. This is the reason we brought forward. We are a proactive approach, and we don't want to change, I want to rephrase that. We want to ensure that we have a consistent measure of enforcement across the board and not target individual practices and individuals, as we aren't passing a bylaw to target an individual. We create a bylaw in good faith for the best practice on the municipality. The way we drafted this bylaw is, again, any enforcement can be conducted under the by our officers, in addition to the OPP. So if a complaint came in, the OPP have the authority to enter onto the property, to go through the ledger and to verify what items are within the property, as well as bylaw enforcement itself. If that ledger is not upkept or the details aren't matching what items are there, that opens up to further investigations and details and further penalty opportunities there. So yes, we are reactive in our enforcement measure. So if there's a concern, those concerns will be brought up to us, and we can work in conjunction with the OPP if there needs to be an inspection to verify if these are ongoing issues and concerns. It enables the authority to come in and inspect these at a higher level.
Very good. Okay. Good for now. Thank you so much for doing that. Rob, I want to try. Do you want to come up? You still have to state your name and address, just very official place here.
So there's probably 3 people that don't know me, but anyhow, Rob House, 43 Margaret Street. As my wife just stated, that the property in question is directly probably 150 feet behind my deck of my house. With that explosion a couple of years ago, I had some damage to my property because of that I never reported, and that's on me. But what has transpired over the last couple of years, it's finally coming to a head. And one thing that I would like to add to that is that I'm trying to work on some property right behind my house now with the trail, and we all know it's contaminated. And I'm worried about the contamination in the scrapyard that at some point is going to have to be dealt with too. Now, I know that just adds a whole can of worms to the whole thing, but again, it affects us that live right behind it personally. So I just want to bring that to the head, that we all know it's contaminated, has been for a lifetime, a couple of lifetimes. But I just want to make sure that, when these bylaws come in, and you would know more than me, but going forward, I would hope that with the contamination in that area, that may be another reason just to get rid of this thing. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone further? Anyone? Okay, Mr. Smith, come on up.
Thank you. Conservation advice.
Just trying to have fun here tonight as well, which I know it's serious, but.
Oh, we always have fun at 87 Broadway.
That's right.
It's the place to be.
State your name and address if you could, just.
Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. I just want to pass along a comment I received when I shared this online. A resident wanted to highlight the need for specific wording for catalytic converters, as those are high theft items that end up at scrapyards. So I'll read out the comment here. It's a little bit wordy, so please bear with me. No scrapyard shall purchase, accept, or pay for a catalytic converter unless it is received from an authorized seller, defined as a licensed motor vehicle dealer, repair shop, or dismantler, and is accompanied by documentation verifying lawful removal and ownership. Purchases from individuals without such authorization and documentation are prohibited. All transactions must be paid by all transactions must be paid by check or electronic transfer, not cash. And then for record keeping, Scrapyards must maintain records for each transaction, including the seller's name, address, identification, vehicle identification number, and proof of authorization. Records shall be retained for at least 7 years and be made available to law enforcement upon request. So that's just what I want to pass along, where there's a specific need for catalytic converters, because those are things that get stolen and, like I said, end up in scrapyards. I'm happy to email the comment along as well.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other comments or questions? I don't see any. So at this time, can we get a motion on the floor to be able to discuss this? Councillor Andrews and a seconder, Councillor Stevens. So at this time, Council, does anybody want to speak on it? Councillor Sherwood. I heard Councillor Andrews, but I do want to go to you first. Yeah.
Age before beauty. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Mayor Taylor, I think I've done that in a previous meeting.
Let's end that
too.
controversy right now, please.
So just to set the record straight, yes, scrapyards are very unsightly. I get that. We have other unsightly businesses like, you know, tow storage areas and tire places. So just want to get that off the record before I make my statement that yes, we know they're unsightly. However, they are commercial or industrial tax-paying citizens. They still have rights as well. So I know. Where I'm going with this is in the application requirement, a business license, they're asking for a criminal record screening. And I'm just wondering what the logic is in that, because I just don't see other commercial or industrial properties coming to us asking for business licenses that have to require criminal record checks. And then my other question within the report is what's business documentation, identification, verification? But specifically, the criminal record screening, yeah, that's my question.
Did you want to answer for that now, or is that commentary to take away, or how are you approaching? Yeah?
If there's
Okay.
an answer now, yeah.
Mr. Branley?
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood, and through you, Chair. The rationale where we came forward for the criminal record check, again, is it does come with a higher inherent risk. So when we look at other licensing aspects that could pose potential risk, as this is a common practice again for taxi licenses, is a requirement that we have for theirs. As it has been mentioned that this property and multiple other properties, not just within the town of Orangeville, but across Ontario in itself, have been involved in multiple cases of theft or crime activity. And it is a common requirement across the board. But the reason we brought it forward ourselves, not to match other municipalities, is that we can place conditions on our license. So when we look at aspects for acquisition, if there's an individual who has high theft or background in this, we're not saying they can't be employed, but we would put a condition that they can't be the individual in a part of acquisition, or put some sort of framework around that to protect the business and protect the welfare of the residents as well, and try to provide a safer management of that. That is why we've included it in that aspect. It's not to say that, no, we won't hire anybody with any sort of record, because again, we want to ensure equitable opportunity across the board and not limit the possibility to operate within the town. And my apologies, can you ask that second part of that question? There's a lot of information going on.
So in your report, you state the applicant requirement include business documentation and identification verification. What do those mean?
For the business articles and that information, again, that is across the board with all of our licenses. When we have any individual who applies for a business license that we license in the municipality, we require certain articles or a document. So if it's at a corporation, a numbered corporation, Ontario Inc. Corp. 1, 2, 3, 4, we require their articles of incorporation. This gives us a background to show that they're conducting legal business, that they're allowed to operate, as well as business registration name. So in Ontario, you're required to register your business operating name, and we want to ensure that this document matches your article. And again, it's just supporting the legal requirements and your ability to operate. When we're looking at identification verification, a part of that application would include a driver's license, a passport, some sort of documentation to show that we know who we are doing business with in case that there has to be any enforcement measure on the town to move forward in that measure, whether it's the working in Ontario or eligibility to work in Canada, or like the documents I previously stated, such as driver's licenses.
Great. Thank you, Mr.
Just a
Branley. Follow-up, Councillor Sherwood?
So again, I'm going on the criminal record check, and I'm just hoping that would never be challenged, because most businesses that we apply are under a numbered company. So you're actually asking for a criminal record check on the numbered company? not the owner. Or there could even be employees that have criminal records. So that's just a comment I'm making.
Mr. Bramley, did you have anything good you received? Okay. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. So I tried to, because this is a brand-new bylaw, I tried to find a lot of information, and it's really scattered out there. Do you have any of our current, like around our population that you went by? Like, is there some municipalities that you could give me so I can look up some things?
Mr. Bramley?
Thank you, Councillor Stevens, and through you, Chair. The most relevant and closest to us would be Melancthon, who has a salvage yard bylaw, and we did reflect measures of their review. I will say I've gone to speaking to other municipalities that are larger and more established and have had these bylaws in existence and have trialed these measures. One of which being London, as yes, we only have a single salvage yard within our bounds. London has upwards of 20. Where they have a vast practice of working with the residents and business owners on this practice. And that's where we started that conversation, as well as Brantford as well as out in the Niagara area, so it's Grimsby and those smaller areas. They do have very similar practices. I've worked closely with my colleagues in developing this, that it's not just larger municipalities, but we also don't have the tools and assets that larger municipalities such as Hamilton, Toronto, London do have, that we do have a limited structure. And we also are with OBP rather than municipal police, where other municipalities do have a much more involved reporting process to those other police forces in that aspect. But we have to work with what the tools we have. And it's why it's a little bit pulled back from those larger municipalities that we include the enforceability for our OBP partners to be able to go and enforce this and the measures to inspect ledgers and the property itself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bramley. Councillor Andrews, I apologize.
Don't
you were in the
apologize,
queue
Chair
and
Taylor.
I have ignored you. My apologies.
No, that's quite all right.
You're
Thank
up.
you. Thank you, Chair Taylor. And I want to make a comment. I want to thank those in the public who've expressed the concerns about the environmental hazards that exist. Mr. Bramley, you did answer the question I guess I was going to ask to Councillor Stevens, but officially, how many salvage yards do we have? And then again, how many unofficial salvage yards? So the comment is, in fact, based on our council approval of a bylaw on the Clean Yard bylaw that was in fact done in 2025 and your department actually led. That's, I guess, where that second question falls under. So question number one and maybe question number two.
Mr. Bramley?
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, and through you, Chair. Again, officially, we have one salvage yard within the bounds of Orangeville. I do not have an answer of how many unofficial salvage yards we have at that time. I can take this information and report further on that.
Very good. Anything further? Well, then I'm going to go, if that's okay. I was just curious. My question is, I think about, I feel like I'm going to get criticized for when I'm going to frame this, but I think about adult entertainment establishments, and my understanding is Orangeville cannot have one. Once they're closed, once they're gone, they can't come back. Would we also do something similar with scrapyards? And that is, so it is the right of the business owner to have their business in our town, but if for some reason it closed, could we impede the progress of that to reopen with new ownership and not allow the licensing?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I will note that within the town zoning bylaw, salvage yards are not permitted use within the municipality. In this case, if a salvage yard were to close, there are processes for residents or business owners to submit minor variances or rezoning to allow that. In our situation, there are no zones within Orangeville where a salvage yard is a permitted use. The existing one has been in existence for, I believe my records is 1950s, which brings it into the position of legal nonconforming prior to the restrictions of our zoning bylaw, which is why this one has been permitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bramley. Mayor, anything further? No? Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Mr. Bramley, can you confirm that if this bylaw is supported and enacted by council, that current salvage yard operators would be forced to comply with all of the aspects of this bylaw, and how long would they have to comply with that from the time that the bylaw is enacted? I'm thinking particularly about the environmental needs that are outlined, like how quickly after that enactment would they have to present their first environmental report, for example?
Mr. Bramley.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you, Chair. And again, thank you for bringing up that point, as we are well aware that these environmental impact assessments aren't a quick process. Moving forward, again, we want to work with business owners to provide them an opportunity to be compliant with our bylaws, as they have been a business, whether it's been enjoyed by other members of the municipality or not. They are, like you said, a paying tax member of the municipality. I do not have a set date for how long it would, but it will be a consideration, and it's working with the environmental assessment, showing that they've initiated this process could dictate how long that takes, and committed communication. If the communication fails at that point, we have those enforcement measures, but we want to provide a fair opportunity to bring themselves into a compliance and make sure that we're following the bylaw that we're bringing forward.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Bramley. Mayor Post, you okay? Okay, so council, any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of this motion? That's very good. That passes. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Bramley. You're off the hot seat for tonight. Appreciate you. Okay, so it's at this time, super exciting. We have a celebrity in our midst. We have our Orangeville Fire Chief, Mr. John Schneider, is on the scene, and you'll be providing a little bit of an overview establishing and regulating bylaw for Orangeville Fire Services. So I will hand the floor to you, sir, and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Deputy Taylor, Council, for a few minutes here. So I'm excited to bring forward a new establishing and regulating bylaw for the town. The bylaw that is currently in place was last updated in 2001, so long overdue for an update, and a number of new changes and some evolving things that are going to be captured in this bylaw. Ultimately, Orangeville Fire Service, Orangeville is very well served by our fire service. Our firefighters are very well trained, and I would argue some of the best trained in the province. We provide a very robust service to all of our residents and those surrounding communities, and I'm very proud to be the fire chief. We're very grateful to council for the support now and in the past to help the fire service achieve what we've been able to achieve and have a high level of readiness. Like many middle-sized cities, we're in a bit of an island. We don't have any large cities nearby that can provide us support for some of the services we have to provide. Yet, because of our size, we do have some of those risks in our community. The demands on the fire service continue to evolve, and it's important that we're transparent for the public of the risks and the liabilities and types of calls that we will run into, and also the current capacity within Orangeville Fire Service. Next slide. So establishing and regulating, it's commonly called an E&R bylaw, and for many years even I didn't understand what E&R stood for. So basically under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, municipalities are allowed to establish a fire department to provide fire protection services in that community. And then the municipality would then regulate the operation of that fire department and determine the level of service that's provided. So best practice is to create this bylaw that establishes and regulates the fire service. Next slide. So Orangeville Fire Service by the numbers. We originally started in 1878. In 2020, we rebranded to Orangeville Fire Service from Orangeville Fire Department. And it was really to address the all hazards type response that we now do. As I mentioned, our last E&R bylaw was updated in 2001. And last year, Orangeville Fire Service ran 1,997 emergency calls. We are seeing about a 10% annual increase year over year. In 2024, we ran 1,811 calls. We will see a reduction in that number this year coming up because of some changes to our tiered response and the dispatch algorithm from Dufferin Paramedics, but it's an appropriate change that's taking place. Orangeville Fire Service currently has 60 staff, 2 managers, a chief, fire chief and deputy. We have 25 full-time firefighters, including training and prevention, 32 volunteer or paid on-call firefighters, and 1 administrative assistant. The fire landscape is changing in Ontario and has been changing for the last number of years in a couple different ways. And all fire services, all emergency services are seeing an increase in emergency calls. And a lot of that can be attributed to an aging population, an aging building stock, and a real change in the use in technology. And what I mean by that is many more people have monitored alarms in their house that go off more frequently, and we get calls to those places. And we're also seeing an increased public dependence on 911 for non-urgent issues. So it's something when they don't know who else to call or don't have the capacity to deal with the problem, unfortunately, they call 911. And it does tend to trickle downhill to the fire service if nobody else. If it's not a police issue or a paramedic issue, it kind of ends up in the fire service's lap. From a fire perspective itself, we are seeing an increased use in synthetics in our home, lightweight building construction. It means fires that we do have are burning faster and hotter than they were 20, 25 years ago. They talked that we used to have 15 minutes to get out of your house on fire. They're talking of 1 to 2 minutes now when there's a fire in your home. So the importance of having a robust fire suppression side and response time is very important. We're also seeing a lot of new risks in lithium-ion batteries, and I will flag this every opportunity I can for council and the public. E-scooters, other battery mobility devices. We're seeing a large replacement of batteries that weren't designed by the manufacturer, cheaper versions off Amazon or online orders. And we are seeing those issues in Orangeville today. And again, just a general increase in how people use technology and what we do in our homes. Next slide. 2023, they introduced a regulation 343/22, which is firefighter certification. This does come into effect July 1st of 2026 with the technical rescue component in 2028. This is the first time that requires mandatory certification of firefighters in order to perform the different fire protection services. I'm very happy to say that Orangeville Fire Service is and has for a long time been using the certification pathway. We're very well positioned and have no concerns in meeting this regulation and the timelines that are coming up. In Ontario, the Fire Marshal's Office has promoted what they call the 3 lines of defense. It's a strategy to protect our community from fire risks. The first line is public fire safety education, and simply using education campaigns and outreach, including our social media work. And what we try to do in Orangeville is prioritize the most vulnerable populations and where we can get the best value or return on our investment. The second is inspections and enforcement, whether that be routine inspections, complaint-based, or vulnerable occupancy inspections and enforcement. All of these first 2 lines are the proactive side. And what we're really finding is that there is research out there to show that how effective those first 2 lines of defense are in reducing injuries and deaths and reducing the fire damages. Unfortunately, they're never perfect, and hence we have the 3rd line, which is the traditional fire suppression. So when lines 1 and 2 fail, we do need an adequate fire suppression response in our community. Thank you. So I mentioned the term fire protection service a couple times. It's defined under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act as the emergencies or type of responses that a community, or firefighters can be responsible for in a community. And I say emergencies, but really it's any of the services we provide, including our public education and inspection and enforcement. So in a municipality, what fire protection services we deliver would be the level of service that's determined by council. Each municipality in Ontario has unique risks based on the many factors, including the geography and their demographics. And since 2024, each municipality has been required to have a community risk assessment completed, which of course Orangeville has. And that's to help the municipality qualify and quantify the risks in our community. So this is, again, designed to help council inform on the level of service that's appropriate and the risks that we do have in our community. Next slide. Just a quick run through, this community risk assessment does have 9 different mandatory sections. And this was done by a consultant for 2024. It's a comprehensive document. It looks at all the risks of every type of emergency. It's well entwined with our Dufferin EM approach as well, so that we're looking at all these things together, but obviously gets into a little bit more specifics about fire protection services. Next slide. There's a number of different sections in the draft of the ENR bylaw, and I won't spend a lot of time on too many of them today, but those are the 10 different sections that are out there. Most of those are dealing, as I say, the definitions, how the council has established a fire service, the structure of it, the approved services and programs that we've delivered, something called limited service, which is new, and I'll explain in a minute. We also traditionally look in this to cover what happens if the call is just outside of our border and how do we approach that and what do we do. So it's direction from council to the fire chiefs on what we want us to do, and ties in the responsibilities, the authority, and the powers that are already entrenched for the fire chief under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. We talk about our enforcement and penalties and fees bylaw. And then probably the last part, Appendix A, is the fire protection services that we currently provide. As I mentioned, I'll spend time on the limited service and the actual services that we provide. Limited service clause is something new to the fire service bylaws, but you're seeing it in the municipal bylaws in a number of senses. And it comes out of, I believe, a Superior Court case out of BC a few years ago where a level of service non-fire related was established. And because of circumstances beyond the municipality's control, they couldn't provide that level of service. So that's sort of being entrenched in the fire service ENR bylaw, is we do depend on volunteer firefighters. We can have things like severe weather that can impact their ability to get to the fire station safely, and it could reduce our ability to respond in a timely fashion or respond with all of the resources that we may need. So this is just an opportunity and clarity for the municipality and the residents to understand that there are some circumstances where not our full level of service may be immediately available. We may need to depend on neighboring municipalities, or we may need to depend on just a longer time frame to be responsive to that. We work very hard to overcome these challenges, but ultimately we can't completely mitigate this risk in our community. Next. The next few slides are actually walking through our current level of service. And just going into it, it'll be clear this ENR bylaw does not change any of the services currently being provided by Orangeville Fire. It doesn't add anything, it doesn't take anything away. If at some point there is direction from council or a request coming from me, it would come through a normal budget process and a service change request. So everything you see here is what we're currently providing. The top, there's a little confusing out of context of the bylaw, but the top portion there is sort of just an index of how this works. And the bottom left corner, fire suppression, the first fire protection service. The NFPA 1001 Firefighter 2 is actually the certification level that we are trained to or to provide this service. And the colored box on the right is the community risk assessment risk that's been identified. So we are identified to have a high risk of fire in our community on an annual basis. And then a brief description of what the service actually entails for us. So for fire suppression, we include offensive and defensive modes. So offensive meaning going into a building. Defensive meaning when we're unable to do that safely or there's zero risk from residents or people inside, we might choose a defensive posture. And this would include things like search and rescue, forcible entry, ventilation, protection of exposures, and salvage and overhaul of the property in both an urban and rural setting. Fire suppression also includes other non-structural fire responses, including vehicle, wildland, and other outside fires, garbage fires, and the such. Tied into that would also be responding to fire alarms, and just a refresher that we do have some mechanisms in our cost recovery side for recurring false alarms if their equipment malfunctions or malicious false alarms. So I'll highlight those cost recovery pieces as we go through it as well. Second one is hazardous materials responses. We're trained to an NFPA level called operations, and this is a good time to talk about those. There are 3 levels identified in the fire service. Awareness is a level of making sure that firefighters can be at the scene safely, so aware of the hazards that are there. Operations is the middle of the road level. In the specifics to hazardous materials, it allows you to perform some defensive operations, but not a full-scale offensive thing, like not necessarily entry into very high-risk hazardous materials. If we had some of those incidences in town, we would depend on the provincial resources through the hazmat agreements that are in place across the province. They have hazmat teams that will respond. And we also have the ability to bring in third-party providers to provide that service if needed. Next one. Passenger vehicles, so automobile extrication, there's two categories, again, just to align with the certification standards or the professional qualifications. Passenger vehicle or heavy vehicle, we have a high risk of both in our area. On an annual basis, we do between 10 and 15 extrication calls where people are trapped in their vehicles every year. So we are looking to the technician level, which includes vehicles on their side and roof is the definition there. We provide scene stabilization. We provide initial medical care if paramedics can't access the patient at the time. We obviously would extricate the patient, control any hazardous materials, and also, secure the scene to make sure that those other allied agencies can respond and safely on the scene as well. Next. This one collects all 6 different disciplines for technical rescue that we're involved in Orangeville Fire. This is where we do not have many resources around us that could support us. Different areas might be able to call on Brampton to come and support them with their high angle. We don't really have the time to do that. So each of these, while it might be a moderate risk or even a low risk, we have different levels of response to them. So rope rescue, we're looking at doing right now at the operations level. We're putting a plan in place to go to a technician level, but operations level would cover probably 95% of the responses we could be expected to respond to. And this isn't rappelling down the side of a high-rise building. This is removing someone from a roof of an industrial building that's been injured, lifting them out of a deep basement, things like that, or any slope rescue type things in our interprovincial parks and in our parks in the area. Machinery rescue is a pretty broad one. It's one that doesn't require certification, but we are trained to the technician level. This includes trapped in industrial equipment, elevator rescues, farm equipment, and those types of operations. It can be as simple as somebody's hand is stuck in a meat grinder, or those in restaurants in town and things. We have people that get their hands stuck. Trench rescue, we're only going to be trained to the awareness level. This is consistent with most of the province. There's very few that can work at a trench rescue. Very dangerous, very resource and money intensive. And in reviewing the records and common history, we have not had a trench rescue call in our community in the last any time anyone can remember. Ultimately, if we did, we do have a potential if someone's excavating their basement, doing water work, that's where they tend to have them. We can bring in provincial resources as well if that was required. We do have quite a risk for surface, swift, and ice water, especially with our flooding and our climate changes that are occurring. We are trained at technician level and will be certified as that becomes available, certainly in time for 2028. What technician level allows you to do is go out on the ice or go out on the water, either swimming or on a flotation device or in a boat. So we have that skill set and have used it, we use it a number of times a year. Confined space is one where we'll stick at awareness. We will be looking in the future to upgrading that a bit. There is a bit of a risk in town, especially with the industrial, where someone might be trapped in a confined space by definition. So we'll move forward with that, but currently we're at awareness level. And the structural collapse one, again, is awareness. We want to be able to operate safely there. We have limited offensive strategies to that, and that would be the heavy urban search and rescue teams out of Toronto likely that would be involved, if we're involved in that type of incident. Next slide. These three are more along our fire prevention and community risk reduction side. Fire life safety education, we're certified to level 2. This is something that we put a lot of time and effort into and certainly looking to expand as we move forward. Our fire inspections and enforcement, again, a level 2, so both of those are the highest level of certification that's available. It gives us the most opportunity to provide a safe community that we all live and work in. We also do fire investigations. It is the fire chief's job to investigate all fires. We do have 2 people trained as fire investigators and looking to get a couple more. This would feed into the provincial resources if it met the criteria or if there was a fatality or serious injury. The provincial resources would come, but we would still continue to work with them to investigate these fires. And the last one on here is the pre-hospital emergency medical care. We use Red Cross, our emergency medical responder, for our full-time staff as the equivalent of 80 hours of training. And our emergency first responder for our volunteer part-time crew is about 40 hours of training. We work with Dufferin County Paramedic Service under a tiered response agreement, respond to the identified calls where we can, our skills and training and equipment can make a difference in the time frame that the ambulance might be delayed to get there. So this is again under a tiered response agreement. I mentioned earlier, they've just changed their dispatch protocol system that has a bigger series of questions, and we're expecting and starting to see probably a 30% decrease in our medical calls, which is good. This means we're going to the calls where we can make the most difference and have the most impact. Thank you. That covers it all in a nutshell, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Snyder. So at this time, we would move into the public comments. Is there anyone on the line? Okay, very good. And there's no one in the gallery. So at this time, we'll have a motion to put this on the floor. Councillor Stevens, Councillor Andrews. Any questions or comments from council? I saw Councillor Andrews. I'm going to go here first. Councillor Andrews, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, and Chief Snyder. Thank you for all that you and your staff do for our community and those peripheral municipalities that are part of the agreement that we have. I wanted to zero in on just one item of this report. This would be in the council document, page 74. It's page 4 of your document. This is under financial and resource implications. And we do get this at times in various staff reports. And I'll just read it, what it says. The bylaw itself has no immediate budget impact. Changes to service levels, if any, are directed by council in the future, would be brought forward through the general manager, community services via the budget process with business cases applied. Looking into the future, hypothetically, what would be an example where there would be a budgetary increase or request?
Chief Snyder.
Thank you. Through Deputy. If we did look to go towards confined space and enhancing our level of service, there could be some equipment requirements. Again, we try to plan these out that we can work through it within our operating budget, but there could be some new equipment requirements for that and an additional cost to maybe do train-the-trainer type opportunities in that sense.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. And again, as I zeroed in not only on this, but I know that in your presentation you highlighted about the battery complexity that's existing in our society, and again, that may be part of some of the new equipment that could be at some point available for your firefighters to use. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Taylor. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for explaining the Dufferin tiered response from the paramedics. We had a little discussion before the meeting, and I appreciate that. The surrounding area, Shelburne, Grand Valley, Caledon, are they up to snuff? If we're going to go and have to work side by side with them, are they trained like our Orangeville guys are?
Chief Snyder. Is that a loaded question?
Yeah. Well, I have no issues with any departments around us. We have a very good collaborative relationship. Within Dufferin, our mutual aid group meets monthly. We train together. We share resources. If there's open seats in courses, we share. So no, I have absolutely no issues. The challenge is everyone around us is a volunteer fire service, so they're challenged like we can be to get the time frame to get our volunteers to the hall. Daytime coverage can be a challenge, but we've had conversations about, they call it automatic aid. So instead of waiting for someone to call, maybe we would look at automatically Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We would call 2 or 3 departments to respond to a house fire, just because we know we're going to need them and the resources anyways. But we work very well together in the community.
If I
Very good. Yeah, Councillor Stevens.
Back in my firefighting days, a long time ago, it was 10, 2, and 10, right? 10 personnel, 2 trucks in 10 minutes. Is that still the same philosophy?
Chief Snyder.
Through your deputy. Good question. No, it's kind of gone away, and we're now falling, that was an OFM piece when there wasn't really much direction out there. It's a kind of good best practice to look at, but ultimately, through the NFPA standards and the studies that are being done now, they look to have 14 to 16 people at a residential firefighters. Just understanding that if you can't be there in a certain time frame, you're limited in what you can do. So, that is one of our challenges. Our first truck can be anywhere in Orangeville in 4 minutes from the time they're dispatched, 4 to 5 minutes. Often it takes 10 minutes for a second truck to get out, simply because they're driving from their house, they're following the traffic laws, and it takes some time to get to the fire station.
Very good. Thank you, Chief Schneider. Any further comments from council? No? Seeing none. We've already got a motion on the floor for this, correct? Yes. So all in favor? Very good. And that passes. Chief Schneider, so nice to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your presentation. And so at this time, I'll call on Nathan Nunes. He's our Chief Building Official Manager, Building Division, to provide an overview of the pool enclosure bylaw update. I think anybody with double consonants in their name is good in my books. Modest, knowledgeable.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Here today to present the pool enclosure bylaw review. To ensure safe installation, maintenance, and regulation of privately owned outdoor pools. It establishes consistent standards for enclosure height, rigidity, non-climbability, and gate security, all aimed at reducing hazards and preventing unsupervised access, particularly for children. The bylaw outlines a structured permit process requiring detailed plans, applicable fees, and compliance with other municipal regulations before construction can begin. It also includes thorough enforcement mechanisms, including inspections, orders, penalties, and provisions for ongoing maintenance, ensuring enclosures remain safe throughout the life of the pool. Overall, the bylaw balances safety, clarity, and accountability, offering well-defined expectations for homeowners while reinforcing community well-being. And in summary, the current bylaw is from 1993 and requires a review. It's more than 30 years old. The revised bylaw promotes private and public safety, as well as clarity and enforcement measures. And the new bylaw will allow for approvals of new types of construction materials, providing they maintain the same level of safety. Questions?
Okay. Council, any comments or questions? Yes. Councillor Andrews.
Through you, Chair Taylor, Mr. Nunes, thank you for being here, and again, thank you for all that you do. Upon reviewing this, I take a look at it from a perspective of various pools that I've had in my backyard. And not to go through a story on this, and I hope I'm kind of proceeding through this appropriately, because again, I know that we had process in the other ones. The example I wanted to highlight is there's a certain above-ground pool that's available. I call it a seasonal above-ground pool. And where you have the opportunity to put it up, but you also come late fall, you take it down. It's got the structural pieces until you decide to either go in-ground or more permanent. Where does that type of pool fall into this? Because I went through line by line in this proposed review, and I see height, I see depth, and it's really dependent on so many other factors. So I'd like to just hear your take on this.
Mr. Nunes?
Councilor Andrews, through you, Chair Taylor, great question. Within the bylaw, you'll see that there's a mechanism for lockable ladders. So that is one of the things. You have these inflatable pools. You're seeing a lot of soft-sided pools. People are ordering them online, coming from overseas, and they place a ladder. So within this bylaw, there's provision no different than if you have a lockable lid for your hot tub. You're going to have a lockable cover for your ladder, providing the sides of that inflatable pool or temporary structure meets the height requirement. And then you can still make it safe by having a lockable ladder.
Education is very important in this area for the general public, and there are a number of retail outlets as well as the opportunity for people to purchase these online. Is there a communications plan, a part of the education thought of, or is that something that could potentially be a part of this?
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Yeah, education and promotion for this, definitely protecting children and public safety is key. Yeah, definitely take that back and do a full education campaign as a part of the promotion of the new bylaw.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. All set up. Any other comments or questions? No? Seeing none, I was so excited to let Councillor Andrews speak that we didn't actually get this on the floor. That's what I was wondering. Yeah, well, you made me jump the queue here. That's at the end of the night. So can we get a motion to get it on the floor? Sure. Okay, Mayor Post, Councillor Stevens, all in favor of doing that? Excellent, okay. And at this time, nobody else has anything to say, so all in favor of the motion? Perfect. Excellent. We're done. I got through the entire night until we got to you, and then there was an error in judgment. So probably a good time for me to turn the meeting back to Mayor Post.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. That was a bit of a marathon meeting. Well done. We'll move straight into bylaws. The recommendation is that the confirming bylaw for tonight be read 3 times and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens. All in favor? Thank you very much for joining us this evening.